today we're going to talk about 2025 NFL head coaching changes, and more specifically, their pending impact on the fantasy football landscape in 2025. Now, to date, we've seen 7 different head coaching changes in the NFL. The Bears, the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Raiders, the Patriots, the Saints, and the Jets have all changed their head boss heading into the 2025 season. Now, we're not going to cover all of them today, but here are 3 NFL head coaching changes that are set to massively disrupt the fantasy football landscape as we know it. There is arguably no better feeling in fantasy football than when you land an absolute steal. You get my 2025 Fantasy Football Draft Dominator, which is jam-packed with strategy and analysis for 250-plus players. And he's been strong in fantasy football. He's averaging over 18 fantasy points per game over 25 career games where he's played at least 73% of the offensive snaps. 2025 Week Winner, formerly known as the Heat Map. So you can conquer start-sit dilemmas, find plug-and-play streamers, and dominate your weekly matchups with this one-of-a-kind resource, Discord community, where you can get personalized advice from 180-plus and counting sharp fantasy football minds that are helping each other dominate. 365 days of elite fantasy football analysis, resources, and Discord community. What's up, my friend? It's my wife secretly loves my mustache, but she won't admit it. Mikey Henninger from Basement Brood Fantasy Football. Endlessly excited to be back on the air, back on the mic, back on the camera to bring you episode 50, aka season 2, episode 1 of Inside the 20 by Basement Brood Fantasy Football. Now, today we're going to talk about 2025 NFL head coaching changes, and more specifically, their pending impact on the fantasy football landscape in 2025. Now, to date, we've seen 7 different head coaching changes in the NFL. The Bears, the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Raiders, the Patriots, the Saints, and the Jets have all changed their head boss heading into the 2025 season. Now, we're not going to cover all of them today, but here are 3 NFL head coaching changes that are set to massively disrupt the fantasy football landscape as we know it. The story for the Chicago Bears heading into the 2024 season was that they were able to land prized quarterback Caleb Williams, who many believe to be one of the top quarterback prospects in recent memory. And now this year, heading towards the 2025 NFL season, the Chicago Bears once again made headlines when they were able to land top head coaching candidate Ben Johnson, who again, many believe to be one of the best head coaching candidates in recent memory. Now, Ben Johnson spent each of the last 3 years as the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, and quite frankly, I don't think anybody can argue that there is currently a better offensive mind in the NFL game than Ben Johnson. His offenses were elite in the 3 years that he spent with Detroit. They finished top 5 in scoring and top 4 in offensive yards in all 3 seasons, including leading the entire NFL in scoring just this past year in 2024. They were elite in the ground game, finishing top 13 in rushing attempts, top 11 in rushing yards, and top 3 in rushing touchdowns in all 3 seasons that Ben Johnson was calling the shots in Detroit. They were dominant in the passing game. They finished top 16 in passing attempts. They finished top 5 in yards per pass attempt. And they finished top 8 in passing touchdowns in all 3 seasons that Ben Johnson was calling the shots in Detroit. And that includes finishing second in the NFL in passing yards in both 2023 and 2024, finishing top 4 in passing touchdowns in 2023 and 2024. Run the ball, throw the ball, it does not matter. This guy does not miss. And as you can predict, all of that success at the team level absolutely trickled down to success at the individual level as well. Starting with the quarterback, Jared Goff was a top 10 fantasy quarterback in all 3 seasons that he was playing for Ben Johnson, including finishing as fantasy's QB6 just this past year. At the running back level, 6 different running backs in just 3 years finished as Fantasy's RB21 or better, which includes Jahmyr Gibbs finishing as RB10 as a rookie in 2020 and Fantasy's RB1 just last year. Amon-Ra St. Brown has finished as a top 7 fantasy wide receiver in all 3 seasons under Ben Johnson, including wide receiver 3 finishes in each of the last 2 years. Sam Laporta has been a top 8 fantasy tight end in each of the 2 years that he's been in the NFL, including the number 1 tight end overall finish in his rookie year in 2023. And then even with all of that firepower already in place, with Sam Laporta, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, all of those running backs, last year we saw Jameson Williams break out for 1,000 yards and a wide receiver 22 finish of his own. Point is, if I was a Chicago Bears fan, and you can tell by looking behind me, I am most definitely not a Chicago Bears fan, I would be insanely excited. I would be over the moon about this hire for the Chicago Bears. And quite frankly, as a full-time fantasy football analyst, I am deeply intrigued by what we will see from the Chicago Bears in 2025. The arrow is pointing straight up on basically everybody in this offense. It's a green light on basically everybody in this offense. I personally will be looking to buy and add stock of Caleb Williams and DeAndre Swift, Rashawn Johnson, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, and if they re-sign him, Keenan Allen as well. And by the way, for the Dynasty League fantasy football players out there, I would be looking to buy stock in most of these guys in my Dynasty Leagues, especially world-changing talents like Rome Odunze, who it was a terrific standout rookie last year, didn't make a heck of a lot of noise in his rookie season because of the offense he was in, because he was buried below DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Rome Odunze is a great buy low candidate if you can. It'll be hard to pry him from the current manager, but it's worth a shot. Are you a software wizard? A code ninja? A forge master, or maybe even just a mad scientist? Then come build your career ladder with Infinity Labs, an award-winning technology company, best place to work, and business of the year with best-in-class benefits and compensation. Visit i-labs.tech. That's i-labs.tech today, where you can learn more about Infinity Labs, our expanding national presence, and why the status quo has no hold on us. All right, moving on to Mr. Duval himself. Man, as cringe as that moment was, the hiring itself might not be so cringe for fantasy football purposes. And of course, we're talking about Liam Cohen becoming the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2025. Now, Liam Cohen's track record in the NFL, or at least his recent track record, is a bit mixed. It's a bit Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. You see, in 2022, Liam Cohen served as the offensive coordinator for Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams. And there's no way to sugarcoat it. That year for the Rams was as brutal, as miserable as it can get from a fantasy football standpoint, from an NFL fandom standpoint. It was ugly. The Rams finished 27th in scoring, dead last in offensive yards, 27th in rushing yards, 27th in passing yards, but at least some of that can be explained. When you add a little bit of color, you add a little bit of context, it's fair to not pin it all on Liam Cohen. For starters, he's not even the guy who calls the plays in LA. Sean McVay is the guy who calls the plays for the LA Rams. So it's fair to wonder just how big of an impact the offensive coordinator has on a team when they're not even in charge of calling the offensive plays. Second, Matthew Stafford played in just 9 games that year before his season ended due to injury. Exact same can be said for Cooper Kupp. He played in just 9 games. Puka Nacua didn't even exist yet. I mean, he did in the world, but he didn't in the NFL quite yet. The Rams' best running back, and I use quotes when I say best, their best running back in 2022 was Cam Akers, which, by the way, that was his first year coming back from a torn Achilles. And that entire environment is not exactly the type of environment that's built for success. Liam Cohen likely deserves some of the blame for that campaign. It's hard to be the offensive coordinator and not shoulder at least some of the blame, but it's also fair. It's not fair to pin all of the blame on Liam Cohen in 2022. Still, he was exiled to be the offensive coordinator for the University of Kentucky in 2023 after he parted ways with the Rams, but it wasn't long before he returned to the NFL, where he became the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2024 when Dave Canales left to be the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. And this is where things get awesome for Liam Cohen. Much better 2024 campaign, elite even. And I know I'm using that word a lot today. I promise I mean it when I say it. Last year's Buccaneers were 4th in scoring, 3rd in offensive yards. They had a strong rushing attack. They finished 10th in rushing attempts, 4th in rushing yards, and 14th in rushing touchdowns. They were even better in the passing game, elite in the passing game, where they finished 10th in passing attempts, 3rd in passing yards, and 2nd in passing touchdowns. And like Ben Johnson, all of that team success trickled down to the individual level where it pays fantasy football dividends as well. Baker Mayfield, just 1 year after setting career highs under Dave Canales, had another career year in 2024. He finished as fantasy's QB4 overall, setting brand new career highs in completion percentage, passing yards, touchdowns, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns. The guy threw 41 touchdown passes, which tied for second most in the entire NFL, behind only Joe Burrow. Then you got Bucky Irving, the rookie running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He finished as fantasy's RB13, even despite splitting time with Rachaad White, who, by the way, finished as fantasy's RB22. Okay, so they had 2 different running backs finish inside the top 22 of running backs in fantasy football. You had Mr. Consistent Mike Evans finish as fantasy's wide receiver 14, and that was even despite missing 3 games. And then you got Chris Godwin, the forgotten man, right? We haven't said that name in a while, but that guy was on pace for a monster campaign. He was on pace for about 120 catches, 1,400 yards, and 12 touchdowns before he went down with an injury. All of those numbers, by the way, 120 catches, 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, not only would those have been all career highs across the board for Chris Godwin, but if he were to stay healthy for all 17 games, that would have made him fantasy's number 2 wide receiver in all of fantasy football, behind only Jamar Chase. I don't think many people realize just how amazing of a season Chris Godwin was having before he got hurt. But the bottom line in regards to Liam Cohen and what we should expect from him in 2025 fantasy football, I'm feeling cautiously optimistic about the Jaguars taking a pretty significant step forward in 2025, though that's not necessarily saying too much considering last year's Jaguars finished 26th in scoring and 25th in offensive yards. But still, I'm cautiously optimistic that Liam Cohen can work wonders for a stagnant career of Trevor Lawrence, just like he did with Baker Mayfield, though, again, some of that credit definitely belongs to Dave Canales as well. He was the one who kick-started Baker Mayfield in the first place. But I'm cautiously optimistic that Liam Cohen can work wonders for a 1-2 punch in the backfield with Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby, similar to what we saw with Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. And the one I'm especially most excited about is second-year wide receiver Brian Thomas. He already had a great rookie year last year, but this guy can take the fantasy football world by storm in 2025, especially because it's entirely possible, if not likely, that Christian Kirk and or Evan Ingram will not be with the team. They are looking like potential cut candidates for the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2025, which would leave Brian Thomas with very little target competition outside of, Gabe Davis. Last but not least, let's talk about Chip Kelly's return to the National Football League. Now, the Las Vegas Raiders hired Pete Carroll to take over and lead their rebuild, and Pete Carroll brought in Chip Kelly to run the offense for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time here because there is plenty of rebuilding on the way. I'm sure we're going to talk about the Raiders again this offseason once we know more about who they're going to have under center, who they're going to have playing running back, who's going to be playing wide receiver. There's going to be more conversation to come about the Raiders. But for now, to start with, I like the direction that the Las Vegas Raiders are headed. I do like this hiring for the Raiders. I like this hiring for fantasy football purposes. Now, say what you will about Chip Kelly as a head coach, but remember, at one point in time, this guy was considered a bit of an offensive genius. And if you put Chip Kelly into a role where he can focus solely on the offense and nothing more, there's reason to think this guy can thrive as strictly an offensive coordinator in the NFL, the way that Cliff Kingsbury balled out for the Washington Commanders just last season. Now, in all 3 years that Chip Kelly was the head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles between 2013 and 2015, we're going over a decade back, but his offense finished 13th or better in scoring and 12th or better in offensive yards, including top 5 in both categories in 2 out of the 3 seasons that he was the head boss of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, it's no secret that things were quite a bit uglier in his 1 year with Colin Kaepernick and the San Francisco 49ers in 2016. They finished 27th in scoring, 31st in offensive yards. It was ugly, it was brutal, it was bad. But it wasn't all bad, at least for fantasy football purposes. Now, Chip Kelly historically tends to deploy a run-heavy approach. And again, take this with a small grain of salt because we are going back about a decade here. But the run-heavy approach that he's deployed in the past is something that is likely music to the ears of Pete Carroll. Chip Kelly finished 11th or higher in rushing attempts in all 4 years that he was a head coach in the National Football League. He had great success in the running game with that volume, finishing 14th or better in rushing yards, 10th or better in rushing touchdowns in all 4 seasons, including top 5 marks in both yards and touchdowns in 2 out of the 4 years that he was a head coach in the National Football League. At the individual level, we saw 6 different running backs finish inside the top 28 of fantasy football running backs in the 4 years that Chip Kelly was in the NFL, and that includes RB3 and RB12 finishes for LaShawn McCoy in 2013 and 2014. Now, his passing attack with the 49ers, that was atrocious. They finished 29th in passing attempts, dead last in passing yards. But otherwise, his offenses finished 12th or better in passing yards in all 3 years that he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, even despite being quarterbacked by Nick Foles, Mark Sanchez, and Sam Bradford, among others. Bottom line, there's reason for cautious optimism that the Raiders can start moving in the right direction. Though, like Liam Cohen, like the Jacksonville Jaguars, that's not really saying a whole heck of a lot after the Raiders finished 23rd or worse in scoring and 27th or worse in offensive yards in each of the last 2 seasons. Still, regardless of what the Raiders end up doing at quarterback, their running back situation is going to be one worth monitoring and one worth targeting in Chip Kelly's offense in 2025 fantasy football. Want to win an autographed NFL jersey of your choice? Take advantage of my Moneyball March Madness giveaway. Basement Brood Fantasy Football subscribers are gearing up to fill out their March Madness brackets for the Brackets in the Basement contest, where the winner is going to receive their choice of an autographed NFL jersey. 0 cost for them to enter the contest. It's just my fun way of saying thank you for supporting my small business. Now, this is all part of a monthly giveaway series that I'm doing for my subscribers each and every month. In January, they competed in a fantasy football contest during the NFL playoffs. In February, they did a Super Bowl predictions pool. In March, it's March Madness brackets. In April, we're doing an NFL mock draft contest. You get the idea. But every single month, one or more lucky Basement Brood Fantasy Football subscriber receives an autographed jersey worth $150 or more in value. Recent winners have chosen Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, a couple different Justin Jefferson jerseys, and a heck of a lot more. Again, these giveaways are for BBFF subscribers only, and it's all a part of a current promotional package that they are taking advantage of because it makes fantasy football players say, whoa, 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 I get all of this for just $69? Nice. But seriously, for just $69 very nice dollars per year, you get 365 days of elite fantasy football analysis, resources, and Discord community, all while also getting a monthly shot at signed NFL memorabilia. You get my 2025 Fantasy Football Draft Dominator, which is jam-packed with strategy and analysis for 250 plus players. You get my 2025 week winner, formerly known as the heat map, so you can conquer start-sit dilemmas, find plug-and-play streamers, and dominate your weekly matchups with this one-of-a-kind resource that breaks down every single player in every single game, every single week. You get access to our Discord community, where you can get personalized advice from 180 plus and counting sharp fantasy football minds that are helping each other dominate. Again, you get access to the monthly giveaways worth $150 or more. And heck, you're even going to find a 2025 Fantasy Baseball Draft Dominator on the website, because why the heck not? Again, you get all of this in my March Madness promotion for just $69 per year. That is less than $6 per month. That's less than one drunken night at Taco Bell at 2 in the morning. You want to get in on this action? You want to lock in that 2025 Draft Dominator, the week winner, the Discord access? You want to get in on the March Madness brackets? Win yourself an autographed NFL jersey? Not to mention a new opportunity to win a prize worth $150 or more every single month? Just use the link that I left for you down in the show notes. But I do recommend that you hurry, because this promotional package that I'm putting together closes when the NCAA tournament begins. That's going to be all for today's episode, but come back next Friday, March 7th, where we're going to be talking about possible landing spots for pending free agents that are relevant for fantasy football. In the meantime, please be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and connect with me over on LinkedIn. I will see you on the fantasy football field next Friday. Cheers. This brew's for you.